Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tim.
I mean, I think I gotta say it. You know, Lep in the Hood, come to do no good.
This is a horror movie podcast. Every week we get together, we watch the movie, we talk about it. And coming up on this episode, unfortunately, is Leprechaun in the Hood, sometimes referred to as Leprechaun 5 in the Hood, which is the fifth, obviously, Leprechaun movie. We've done the first four. This was originally going to be right at the end of the Octoberthon. As things get shifted around a little bit as we're prepping for Tim's impending fatherhood. It's no secret, I've not been fond of these Leprechaun movies.
Really?
Up until this point.
Up until this point, okay.
Right. And, you know, there's a reputation here that the two In the Hood movies, which is the last two Leprechaun movies that Warwick Davis did, have a bit of a rep, and
also a bit of a lep.
God, this is going to be a nightmare. So, yes. We'll start spoiler free if you give a shit, but you probably don't. So I to start things off here, I'll just give you the basic premise. This ignores and contradicts all the continuity of the previous films, because it starts with a scene in the 70s that sets up the plot of the movie, and then time jumps to present day, which at the time is 2000. So despite the fact that Leprechaun had 3 movies on Earth in the 90s before this one, he was apparently completely made of stone and inside Mr. Ice-T's office the whole time.
Mac Daddy, to be precise.
Mac Daddy's the character name, yes.
Yeah.
Ice-T, of course, is the real person. Mm-hmm. Although I get the impression he also gave himself that name, because I don't imagine his parents named him that. Just a thought.
Sure.
Yeah. Mr. and Mrs. T. That's quite funny, actually. Right. I don't believe Mr. T has any relation to Mr. Ice-T. I think it's a coincidence that they both have T as the last name.
Yeah. For now, yeah, until someone proves us otherwise.
Yes. Although there's probably a nice little fan fiction thing to be written there. But
sure. And who knows, maybe they maybe E.T. fits in there somewhere too.
Yes, maybe E.T., yes. That's possible. But so it contradicts all of the plots of the previous films, because apparently he was trapped in stone the entire time as those other films were playing out. But whatever, it's not this series is ever taking continuity with any type of.
I mean, we don't know if this is the same Leprechaun from each movie.
That's your argument. That's your argument that all the Leprechauns all look like Warwick Davis. They're all the exact same looking.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, we don't know much about leprechauns. I mean, they could just be this kind of, like demon or monster that, yeah, they kind of look and sound the same, and so, there's a possibility there.
This is going to be a long review. It's going to be a long review. I can't wait. I can't wait till you have to jokingly defend some stuff in this movie, Tim. I cannot wait, because there's some problematic stuff in this one, and I can't wait to see you try and spin it. I cannot wait.
I mean, that's going to be tough. I at some point, you do have to take something in context and say, okay, I understand, why this would have happened at this time, but yeah, I mean, that's maybe the one unfortunate thing about it is
the one. Like I'm going to put my cards on the table here, right?
Okay, please do.
Right. I have not enjoyed the Leprechaun films.
Which one?
All 4 of them so far. Right.
Oh wow. Okay. Interesting.
Right. I have made that very clear in the reviews. Now, Tim clearly likes to pretend and play up how much he loves them to annoy me, right? Like, in all seriousness, Tim does a bit of a character, proclaiming them to be, these amazing things, and clearly he doesn't believe that. He has fun with them, sure, but he doesn't actually believe the shit he's saying for most of these reviews. It's his shtick. He's doing a thing, right?
News to me, okay.
He's doing a bit. And alternatively, I do think I play up my hatred a little bit, right? Not as much as Tim plays up his love, because I do generally don't like any of these films. I don't think they're that enjoyable. But I do maybe go a little over the top with the hatred to counteract Tim's love, right? I think that's a fair statement to say. So what I'm trying to say is that 1 to 4 are not good movies. They're pretty bad, but they're not the worst things ever, and they're kind of inoffensive for the most part. Leprechaun in the Hood makes those 4 look like masterpieces. Leprechaun in the Hood is about a fraction of a sidestep away from Evil Bong in terms of quality. That is how bad this movie is. This movie is garbage. Like, straight up garbage.
Interesting. That's definitely one take. Okay.
And I hope you enjoy mediocre rap music, because this, do you know what it was making me think of? It was making me think a little bit of the Howling 7 with all the line dancing scenes. How many scenes there are in this of like the main characters doing doing raps in various places? Because the plot of this movie is that the 3 young men want to make it big. There's a competition coming up in Vegas, a rap like tournament or something. And they're kind of shit. They're not that good. No one really seems to like them. But they get the magical flute from Leprechaun, and that like basically convinces everyone they're great, because it, like, I don't know, they play the flute for like a couple of seconds, everyone gets all hypnotized by it, and then they think the songs are great.
Right. Yeah.
And both the Lep and the music producer who had the Lep, who had stolen them originally in the 70s, Mac Daddy, they're both on the hunt for the flute back. So they're hunting them down, and that's the movie in a nutshell in terms of the premise. But we're just getting started. Would you like to tell me do you enjoy Leprechaun in the Hood, Tim?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because what we have here is something that I don't think any other film could pull off, which is, once you send a character to space, that's kind of, the final frontier. That's usually the end point. Like, that's when it's like, okay, yeah, we've kind of run out of ideas. There's not much we can use to heighten. And I think this is maybe the only movie I can think of that actually manages to do something worthwhile and, say, okay, we've gone as big as we can. How can we scale it back and maybe do something a little more character focused, which I think is really interesting on their part, because so many of the other movies were really concerned about the Leprechaun's agenda, but here we're following these 3 young hip hop hopefuls in a quest to attain fame and fortune and notoriety, in a tale that very closely mirrors Homer's Odyssey, through trials and tribulations. And we have these group of characters that are very likable, and they're going through all these different set pieces set against them, which I think is interesting. And here you have not just the terror of the Lep, which obviously is this kind of dark, encroaching, magical, scary kind of slow burn horror creeping up on them. But you also have this immediate real life danger of Mac Daddy, who's also after them. And yeah, I honestly, I was skeptical going into this one, and I was relieved at how much they pulled off. I do, you try to say that I blindly love these movies, but I am going to be a little harsh on this one, because you mentioned earlier there is some problematic stuff that unfortunately doesn't hold up nowadays. So I am gonna have to knock it a few points, but I do think if you can get past that, there is some real charm, some real unique ingenuity to play here. I like the focusing on something different. Like honestly, it was getting a little boring and a little stale, just having all these kind of white protagonists and stuff in all these previous movies. So I do like that, they're bringing it to a different location and focusing on different types of characters.
This is so cheap and dirty. So cheap. I see what you're trying to do here. You're trying to like give it this big like success story because it's this is dirty. This is dirty, and you know it.
I think this is a movie that has a lot to say that a lot of people will enjoy and find. It demands multiple rewatches for sure. If you really want to get the most out of it, because there's stuff I was picking up on here that I had it in previous watches, and I'll admit it has been a while since I've seen this one, but even knowing some of the general beats and everything, I was still surprised at how much of it felt fresh. And I mean, again, this is still the Leprechaun series, so we do have to acknowledge that the Leprechaun is in this. And Warwick Davis just seems like he's having a hell of a time on here. He's rapping, he has a flute, he has zombie fly girls. I mean, this is just a hoot from start to finish. If you ask me.
Do you mean to tell me that they gave Leprechaun even more powers randomly that have never been brought up before?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I like about the series is that it is constantly trying to reinvent itself and stay fresh. So, I mean, I'm sorry that he's not just a guy with a machete or a butcher's knife who just walks around and stabs people for 9 to 10 movies. But no, they like to try to mix it up and do different things. I think that's what kind of keeps the series fresh.
Uh-huh. That's interesting, Tim.
Yeah.
Interesting. So where to begin? And I guess I'll just give the spoiler warning at this point because I don't really feel like trying to tuck around things because the movie's hot trash and I feel like you can just not care about spoilers.
Okay. I mean, I think most people probably already watched it anyway, so.
Beg to differ. So I will thank our Patreon producers at the time of recording, which is Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Short, Born Now, Al Tribesman, Christopher Moy, Brett Williams, and David Brown. They're all $20 or more at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. And you can, of course, support us over there for as little as $1 per month, get access to the back catalogue of bonus episodes, and you can, of course, get early access at $5 and voting rights and all that sort of stuff. So go and have a look and see if you're interested. And you can also support us for free by simply hitting the like button and leaving comments and stuff like that. So please do not feel like any of that goes to waste because all of it is very, very helpful.
Yeah, and I would also like to thank, even though they're not a Patreon subscriber, I do think we should give thanks to Warwick Davis for bringing us such a seminal character that has managed to stay relevant for multiple decades in the character of the Lep. So thank you, Warwick.
I don't know, Tim. I feel like more and more these Leprechaun reviews are you saying something absolutely absurd, and then me being dumbfounded and not knowing how to respond to any of the crap that you're saying. That is becoming a cliche at this point of these Lep reviews.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just speaking from the heart here. I mean, I don't know if you need me to place my hand on the Book of the Dead and swear that I'm giving you the Lep's honest truth here. I don't know what else I need to say here.
Either that Book of the Dead is tiny or Tim's a lot bigger than I thought it was. So I do have to. I'm fascinated because obviously I expect the next one to be a train wreck just like this. But I am fascinated when we get to Leprechaun Origins or Reborn, whatever the Hornswoggle one is, because I don't think you like that one, and I'm fascinated to see what the review is going to be like when we get to one that betrays the Leprechaun franchise, and I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated by that idea.
Yeah, I mean that will be an interesting episode for sure.
And I think there's a chance we might be doing that in the banked episodes before you go on paternity leave, but it might be after. I'm not sure. It's kind of borderline. We're definitely doing the second in the Hood movie before you're on paternity leave. I don't know about the last the ones after that though. They may be waiting until after you're back. But anyway, so there's a flashback to this. So I want to get something clear. This movie is absurdly cheap, right? This is somehow it looks even cheaper than the last one. The opening scene is a flashback to the 70s where Ice-T has one of the worst wigs I have ever seen on an actor in my life, to the point where there's a moment in this where he gets like knocked back against the wall and slides down, and I swear you can see the wig shift forward. You can see it move on his head.
Well, I mean, you got to keep in mind he has a baseball bat in there, so it has to be, a little big.
I'm not complaining the size. I'm complaining the fact that it looks stupid. And yes, he has like multiple weapons hidden inside his afro there. It's the
Hey, this movie knows what it's doing. It's having fun. I mean, it's not trying to be Schindler's List or anything here. It's a live action cartoon, and it knows what it wants and what it's doing, and I think it portrays it quite well. I mean, I'd love to see what else he has hiding in that wig, to be honest.
So he's able to steal the flute. He puts the medallion on the leprechaun, which keeps him turned to stone. Which, to be fair, I vaguely remember this being something from one of the other movies. Like, was it like 2 or 3? Did they have this stone thing?
Yeah, that's how like 3 starts off. I believe he's in a pawn shop, turned to stone.
That sounds right. Yeah.
And it's probably important to note that he doesn't actually place it on him. He kind of it's on like a loose board that he falls on, causing it to be flung into the air and falling on him.
Yes, a good point. Yes, Mac Daddy is useless and doesn't even do anything. Leprechaun does it to himself. Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, it's not that he does it to himself. It's just that there's this idea of destiny that drives the movie. That
this idea of destiny. Homer's Odyssey. You are full of such shite. This is, oh my god. Right, so we're introduced to our 3 main characters. They're doing a little, hip hop performance. But the guy who does the beats or plays the track, I don't know what the official job title is.
Like the DJ.
The DJ, yeah, the DJ. Yeah. Because 2 of them do rapping and then the other one do rapping. You can clearly tell I'm out of my element here with the subject, but
oh boy.
But he ends up like accidentally.
So I feel like would you have been more comfortable if this was like about yodeling instead of rapping?
Definitely not. Definitely not. I definitely understand rap way more than I do yodeling. But they end up frying one of the speakers or something like that, and it's like, okay, we're out of our luck. We need new equipment. We have to find a way to raise money, and we have a montage of them trying to hustle people like into buying this like old guitar one of them has. Which for some reason they just throw away. There's a questionable scene with an Asian store owner, Mr. Chow, I think his name was.
Yeah. I thought it was funny because my wife's name is Chow, so I always like to see someone named Chow on screen, but unfortunately, he's not portrayed the best.
No,
it's a little stereotypically, unfortunately.
Yeah, a bit of a stereotype. Of course, it's not the worst example of how someone is portrayed in this movie. We'll get to Miss Fontaine in due course. But you have this thing where basically like the sort of more like I should probably get their names up.
It's Postmaster P.
Postmaster P is the main guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Stray Bullet, I think, and then and Butch.
Butch, yes.
Yeah.
The parents must be so proud of these names. Stray Bullet is like basically, how about we go and try and like rock? Well, actually, I should probably mention they meet Mac Daddy and they try to like get him to listen to their demo tape, and he listens to it, says their shit, says, and this was a really like, weird message as well in the movie. It's like, hey, your rap's too nice and like goody two shoes. Like, you have to talk about shooting people. You have to sing about hitting bitches. You have to sing about all this stuff.
Well, I mean, I think that's part of the conflict of the movie is you have these characters that you're pretty quickly endeared to because you see that they're kind of just trying to do their own thing. They're not trying to play by other people's rules. They want to kind of spread this message of positivity, but they're kind of, there's this sneaking corruption of fame and fortune that says, no, that's not what society wants. Yeah, society wants you to talk about guns and bitches and blah blah, and they're kind of fighting against it. And you can kind of see this push and pull, between like good and evil, and these conflicting ideas of, should we compromise our dream in order to achieve success, or should we stick to our moral grounds? And it's it's an interesting conflict that's played throughout the movie.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if you might have not seen that, I mean, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it went over my head a little bit. Yeah,
a little bit. Yeah,
maybe that's what happened. Aye. I mean, there is almost an arc that I can see them try to do with Postmaster P, who's the one who's against this idea, because they see that he has all this stuff, that he has this floating like gold and stuff in his office. Stray Bullet wants to rob the place, and Postmaster's like, wait, what, are you talking about crime? Are you talking about guns? What? I'm not going to be a part of this. And then it cuts to the very next scene when they're meeting up to go and do it, and Postmaster P just shows up. Like, there's no scene of him struggling with it. There's no like reason why he gets more desperate and wants to go do this. He just shows up as he's agreeing to commit this crime with them. So they go in. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's the bonds of when you're part of a musical group. There's a sense of bondsmanship and camaraderie that you can't really give up. You are kind of, despite not necessarily believing in what you're doing, like you can't really go against the group there.
The whole like their goal of like making it big and going to Vegas and winning this competition so they hit the big time and get a record deal. It all feels very like
real.
No, that's not the word I was going to go with. I was going to go with naive and ignorant, because it feels like they're just starting out and they're entitled. They expect that they're going to do this, and they acknowledge later on that they're not that good, which is good, because at least the movie's not that dumb. But I don't know. It's just like it feels like this is just something they're doing on a whim almost. They've been practicing for maybe like a week, and they're at the point where they're willing to try and like go into a place with guns and rob it. Rob this guy's office, which of course ends up with Postmaster shooting Mac Daddy. Now, luckily, Mac Daddy is bulletproof and somehow doesn't die. He's got like a medallion or something that stops a bullet. I don't know quite what it was, but
it's Lep magic for sure.
It's Lep magic. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
But this basically starts the cycle of the movie, which is they're on the run, they have to hide in various places, and Mac Daddy's chasing after them, Leprechaun is chasing after them. I actually felt, did you not notice that there's probably less Leprechaun in this than the previous movies? Because it felt like to me that there was long stretches where it just focused on them trying to get their next rap performance done.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that I think is interesting is
it interesting, Tim? Tell me how interesting this movie is. It's so interesting.
Well, because the Leprechaun is often portrayed as being this, this villain, that's like stalking the heroes, whereas here he's much more of a force of nature, if you will. Because like the real villain is probably Mac Daddy, and the conflict between choosing between like pursuing good and evil. That's all there as the good and the bad, but then like the Lep is just kind of this chaotic force that shows up at the right time for the movie, wrong time for the characters for sure. But yeah, he almost like a tornado or something, he just kind of blows in and does his thing, and it's I think it's a very interesting take to have here for the Lep. And I think one important thing I think that you forgot to mention is Mac Daddy keeps him like in his office or studio or whatever, and so when they're robbing things and they take the medallion off him, that's what brings him back to life. So it is actually the character's own hubris that does bring about this chaotic force in their lives, which is interesting.
Oh, is it interesting? I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I'm so glad to hear it's interesting.
One of the many takeaways.
you had the gall to put in the word hubris in there. The character's on hubris. These characters, I mean, first of all, the acting across the board in this movie is pretty bad, right?
No.
It is. It's bad. The dialogue is painfully repetitive and like redundant. The characters are constantly saying things that don't mean anything. That are just.
I mean, God forbid a character should say a thing in a movie.
No, but they're just saying things that don't mean anything. They're just reiterating the sort of the point they've already made is said like 4 or 5 times. It's really just nauseating just how much redundant dialogue there is in this movie. And then on top of that, the direction is piss poor. It looks made for TV at best. The sound recording at times is actually quite bad, and I never noticed that in a movie, but there's legitimately a couple of scenes in this movie where I noticed that there'll be a conversation between 2 characters, and one of the characters will sound off mic, where the mic's not close enough to them, and it sounds bad. Like, it should have been ADR'd, and it isn't. Which, it just makes the whole thing feel very sloppy. It's very slapdash.
I mean, I admit it has more of an indie darling kind of feel than the other movies. Look, for sure.
Look, this is going out way in advance of this other thing, but we just recorded a review for January for The Transfiguration, which is actually an indie art house darling, is actually a phenomenal little movie, and Tim has the gall to try and reuse phrases that I used in that review against me in Leprechaun in the Hood. How dare you?
I mean, yeah, obviously they weren't filming in IMAX or anything for this, but I think though you can see that what they were able to accomplish with the shoestring budget as it was, I actually think it's pretty impressive.
Second of all, how dare you? Okay. How dare you?
How dare I?
How dare you? There's a guy who's selling them the equipment who is apparently having a relationship with with Stray Bullet's mum, and then he gets killed because apparently Leprechaun's whole thing in this movie is that he's brainwashing people into being his drones. So he gets a lot of attractive women to be his drones with glowing green eyes, so that he's got like a little army.
Yeah, they're his zombie fly girls, as he calls them.
Why all of a sudden does he have this power?
I mean, it's not like any of the other movies that they did a checklist and they've said like, "Hey, this is all the powers I have." Like, it's reasonable to assume that this mythological being has powers that we're not all aware of.
There's several scenes where his telekinesis would come in handy that he doesn't use it, and I'm just saying that. There's a lot of powers that seem to get introduced later. There's a lot of moments in the past movies where that may have been quite handy. My favorite one in this one is that he can literally just like basically blast someone like through the chest, like he's fired a shotgun at them.
Yeah. I agree. I do like that.
He just makes their chest explode. Don't. Oh my god! They end up going to hide at Miss Fontaine's. Miss Fontaine. I am actually scared of talking about this. I'm terrified of the terminology not being quite right because holy shit, what is this section of the movie? It is. Let's just call it what it is. It's transphobic. Let's just get it out in the open and hit it head on.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I can't defend this. It's of its time. It does not hold up well at all. Unfortunately, it's a little bit of a blight on the movie. It's
along with every other scene, yes, but yes, go on.
I mean, it's unfortunate because I do think you could have Miss Fontaine being like a very, like strong, character and having some representation in the movie. I think that would actually be really cool and interesting. Unfortunately, yeah, it is played off more, for humor and stuff. So it ends up being, more transphobic than you would expect in a Leprechaun movie.
I mean, there's elements to this. Like, it's meant to be a joke when she talks about getting an operation. It's a joke when the guys are all basically scared of like sex with her. Where and for some reason there's a weird scene where Miss Fontaine takes off the top and like shows the chest, and then there's a scene where the whole joke is the Leprechaun might be having sex with Miss Fontaine. And it turns out he's actually just killing her, but it's meant to look like he's having sex with Miss Fontaine. And everything about it is just like, it's like a 10-minute section of the movie that is just one really poor taste bad joke after one really poor taste bad joke. And it's not necessarily worse from a quality perspective to the rest of the movie, because the whole movie is just bad, terrible jokes. But this section is so problematic.
Yeah, it's very, very unfortunate that it's you have to put like a little asterisk when recommending the movie because of this scene here. And
it's not it's not like the theme of this doesn't come back up later either. For some reason, out of nowhere at the ending, the only way they can infiltrate the Leprechaun's hideout is by cross-dressing. Yeah, I mean, it's not like this is the last time the subject in general comes up.
Yeah, I mean, at least that, though, there is a reason for it. So, if it's the story. But,
there's a reason for it? You think it's just... You think this logically makes sense? They're like, well, how are we going to get into his hideout? I'll tell you what, we'll pretend to be women. Do you think that makes sense?
Because they do clearly state in the movie that the Lep has a hideout at the top floor of this club, and that he has been taking women up there, presumably to have sex with. So yes, it does make sense that that if the only people that can get up to this room are women, that they would have to become women. So there's a reason for it.
Come on, it's contrived and stupid and forced, and it's it reeks of there was that sitcom on, like, I think I want to say CBS.
Buddies?
No, it was called Working It or something like that. It was about two guys who can't get a job because the job market's really like against men, so they decide to pretend to be women to get a job. And then it's just all the jokes of like, oh, all the men at the workplace find them attractive, and hilarity ensues, like all that shit.
I mean that's everything. Like, yeah, that was a bigger thing back in the day. I mean, yeah, you have like Tootsie and like Mrs. Doubtfire and stuff. Which some of it is like you can see what the intent was, and then obviously some of it, looking through today's lenses, you see, oh yeah, that is bad and in poor taste.
I mean, this sitcom was like 2012. It wasn't that long ago.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought there was one in the 80s that did that. So,
no.
Okay, sorry.
This was surprisingly recent for what it was.
Well, that's interesting. I would not have thought that.
Or even White Chicks, which I've never seen, but every clip of White Chicks I've ever seen has made me cringe with just how terrible it looks. I just everything about this just felt like it was coming from this mean, like, poor taste humor, and then like all the other just like bad jokes and stuff, or even the whole plot of like how they're going to defeat the Leprechaun is to make him smoke 4-leaf clovers.
Yeah,
is the ultimate angle here. It's like, do you know what it is? This entire movie is a bad sketch that should be on Saturday Night Live that should last no more than 5 minutes, and somehow it gets stretched out to like a 90-something minute movie. That's it.
I mean, well, I do agree that the Leprechaun should be on SNL. I would, I would tune in on that for sure.
Of course you would.
But no, I mean, I think this is a, I do want to understand that, that, particular scene, is troubling, and I would understand if someone wasn't able to enjoy the film because of it. I do think it is a testament to the film, though, that it still manages to be as entertaining as it is, despite having that flaw. That I think that most people are able to look past it and still appreciate the art, because of it. And I mean, let's face it, this is a movie for dreamers. I think anyone who's ever had a dream that
dude, froze so shut. This is unreal. The spinning that's happening right now. Honestly, it was during this troubling section that I actually got the most excited for the review, just because I couldn't wait to hear what you were going to say. I couldn't wait to hear how you tried to spin any of this into being good.
Unfortunately, not everything holds up in 2020 eyes. But it was a different world back then. 2000. 9/11 hadn't happened.
What the fuck does that mean? The movie is so repetitive. So much of this movie is them go to a place, interact with a character, in this case Miss Fontaine, later it's the Reverend or whoever.
I mean, God forbid characters should go to a place in a movie.
Let me finish the point I'm trying to make, you absolute
So far your complaints have been that the characters say things and that they go to places. Like, oh, sorry, I guess, yes, movies shouldn't do that.
They end up performing, right? And here it's the practicing.
At the church?
Well, before with Miss Fontaine, they're practicing in the alley. And then the neighbours hate it because it's too loud. Because yes, it's the middle of the night and they're rapping very loudly in the street. Of course, people are going to complain. And then they play the flute. Like Postmaster P plays the flute for a little bit, and it leads to everyone loving it. So they end up with a crowd, and then all the Leprechaun stuff happens. Where the Leprechaun shows up, and so Butch, there's a running thing with him where everyone knows he's not had sex yet. So even like Postmaster P's mother's like making virgin jokes. It's really weird and like really one note. But he apparently is very good with electronics and chemicals, and he like comes up with like an electrocution or like fire starting plan to try and kill the Lep, which obviously doesn't work because he's a leprechaun. He's like immortal or whatever. Of course, yeah. But so this is all shite, obviously. And then they end up at the church, and like the Reverend makes them perform, but they don't know how to rap about God or good things, so the crowd gets really upset. And for some reason, randomly, as they point out at the back of the church, Coolio is just there for like 2 shots and then disappears and is never mentioned or seen from again.
What's funny is he appears, and I think both me and my wife, I think we're like, is that Coolio? And then as soon as we said that, I think one of the characters go, hey, that's Coolio. And I love it. I mean, great to see him pop up and show his support for the franchise. The church scene in general, I think, is just a hoot. It's so funny to see them out of their element, and having to being forced into a situation where they have to use their talents in a way that they hadn't thought of before. So they tried improvising, much to the chagrin of the church crowd, to the point where people actually are leaving the church, which I think is funny. Just people getting up and leaving the church in disgust. But they're able to actually turn it around and win the crowd back with magical powers, which is was really entertaining to see.
Is that a fact?
Yeah.
Eventually, Mac Daddy shows up with his squad, and the Lep shows up. They trap the Lep in like a safe or something, which I swear also happened in Leprechaun 2.
Yeah. So this movie, it's fresh, but it also has a lot of callbacks to the original series. It's a little bit of a love letter to the franchise while also being kind of like a fresh new start.
Yeah, a love letter written out a cup, like letters from a magazine, ransom note style. That kind of love letter, yes. So yeah, this is where we see that the Leprechaun can actually like blast people like a shotgun just with like thinking about it. To the point where Mac Daddy runs off, because there's a whole thing here which is sort of like flipped at the end where Mac Daddy doesn't believe the Leprechaun's behind him, and the Postmaster's like, "Hey, he's behind you," and
yeah, this is where it kind of shows off its postmodern humor, because like they do that like, oh well, he's right behind you, and the character actually comments on it, is like, oh come on, I'm not falling for that, that's the oldest trick in the book. But yeah, it's funny because in this case it's true, and then in the end there's actually a delicious little callback to it.
Delicious. Delicious. Oh my god, this is I cannot like really quite explain just how bored and unfunny all this is. Like the dialogue is terrible. Like it just is, and the performances are terrible. The fact that these characters,
you mean the rap performances?
No, the acting.
If you don't like rap, then you're not gonna.
The acting performances. Hey, even if you do like rap, you're probably going to hate this movie, because I don't imagine that people who are into rap are going to enjoy the rap in this. It's pretty basic and dull stuff.
I mean, I'm a little bit of a hip hop head myself, and I've been singing "Lep in the Hood" all weekend.
Of course you have. Yes, the Leprechaun gets a rap at the end credits. Yes, if everyone cares.
Thank God, because that's like the one thing. As you're watching the movie, you're not sure if they're gonna go there, but you're kind of like clenching your fists on the chair and saying like, "Is he gonna rap? Is he gonna rap? Please tell me he's gonna rap." And then yes, by the end, they knew what the fans wanted, and they give it to you. Give it to you hard.
I really hate you sometimes. And I hate this movie. I really do. These characters decide to go to the competition, which apparently only the finals are in Vegas, because the competition they go to and like sort of win, which is in a surprisingly small room. Again, I was really feeling the budget here. But they win, this like, they go to regionals or whatever, like is the joke. But the Leprechaun shows up and uses his telekinesis. He wants to flip back. He makes Stray Bullet shoot himself in the head, so he's dead now.
Yeah, this is really tragic, this part of the movie, because they are so close to getting off scot-free, and this is a rare moment of decency from the Leprechaun, because he usually will still kill people even after he gets what he wants, but he gets his flute back, and he's essentially gonna let him leave, but it's because they keep hounding him that he has to unfortunately show his cards, and forces Stray to shoot himself. And geez, you can see like the pain and anguish on Postmaster P and Butch's face, that they've just lost one of their comrades, one of their brothers in arms. And it's I dare even like the most macho alpha male, like strong dude, like I dare them to not watch this and like shed a tear at this moment, because this is like a gut punch for sure.
I mean, I was crying a lot throughout this movie, but it had nothing to do with emotional gut punches. It was all to do with just being in pain and miserable that I'm watching something that's this disastrous.
And if it's making you feel something, that's an effective movie to me.
Yes, hatred for filmmaking. Taking away all my hope that films can ever be good again. Yes. No, I like the
started to turn around.
The death thing is really weird because obviously the movie's not taking itself seriously at all, and then all of a sudden this scene's actually kind of dark. It's not that well executed, but it is at least feeling a bit more serious. And then, because I think it's weird that these characters never really learn their lesson, because they're trying to basically fake success with this magic flute, and it never really has them realize or learn or understand that they're trying to take a shortcut, which means they don't deserve it, and therefore, they grow as characters. And I thought that maybe, because the ending, when they put on the dresses and they go to pretend to try and defeat the leprechaun, which doesn't work, by the way. And there's obviously all these weird scenes of the sex drones ladies just being hypnotized and saying things like, the leprechaun in the hood, he's up to no good, or whatever. Yes.
Well, I think ultimately what it comes down to is this is a modern Shakespearean tragedy, to the point where, unfortunately, you have this one member of the group who is basically like the conscience of the group. He's the one that is always striving to, push them towards being good. And unfortunately, once he is, tragically taken out, pretty much all hope is lost, and they are, have turned to the dark side in a,
Wait, what?
Unfortunate twist. And
so what do you mean taken out? Postmaster's the last one standing.
Right, but when Stray's gone, and they basically like the conscience, the Jiminy Cricket, the
Stray wasn't the force. Postmaster was the one who didn't want to do the crowds. Postmaster was the one who was rooting for all of the well-intentioned music about positive things.
No, I think you're mistaken.
No, Stray was the one who wanted to commit the crime. Stray's the one who was willing to change all the lyrics to be about slapping bitches and whatnot.
You might have to go back and rewatch this. I think you're missing a key factor here, which is this pivotal turning point of the film. That once are you genuinely are you trying to wind me up, or are you genuinely mixing up which character was which? Because this is a complete swap of who they are. It's a Shakespearean twist. You often see.
Stop saying Shakespearean! You can't just call something Shakespearean and have it mean that it makes sense. It doesn't work like that.
I mean, all I'm saying is that this tragedy has altered the group. Unfortunately, not for the good.
Because what I was going to say is that I could see the attempt here at the end, the idea being that because Postmaster didn't want to shoot anyone, he didn't want to use a gun, he ended up shooting Mac Daddy, although it never really addresses the fact that once Mac Daddy turns out to be alive, Postmaster never seems relieved or seems to care or acknowledges it in any way, but whatever. But at the end of the movie, he's willing to just go out of his way to kill for revenge at the very end after everything goes down. And a better movie might have said that he becomes one of Leprechaun's drones at the end, because Leprechaun takes control of him, and he basically becomes his rapping puppet for the ending. One might say he deserved that fate because he had he tragically chose to give up on his beliefs and became just another potential killer. He wanted to just he wanted to go for revenge instead of sticking to his morals. But I don't think the movie is actually doing that. I think I'm actually giving it far too much credit and trying to give it more than it's actually got in the script. But
yeah, I mean, like any good revenge movie, there is a point where the character can either completely lose themselves, to the revenge, or they can rise above it. And again, that's why I think this, movie ultimately it's going for a tragedy.
But according to you, Postmaster's not the one who had the morals earlier on. According to you, that was Stray Bullet, and Stray Bullet's already dead.
Yeah, but what you would want is you want that motivation for him to rise up and say, no, we don't need this. We can do this on our own. But unfortunately, they don't take that. They take the unfortunate route of, giving in to this desire for revenge, which ultimately is their downfall. And you hate to see it, but it does give it this kind of ironic, tragic twist of fate ending, which for a horror movie, it's very it leaves you with this sense of dread and sorrow, which I thought was well done.
You are I've said full of shite far too much. I can't just keep using that phrase. There's definitely more. Yes, welcome to Screams After Midnight, where Tim is full of shite. No, I look, this movie is repetitive, it's cheap, it's thoroughly unfunny, it's downright problematic at several key points. The writer's attitude towards the idea of a trans character or the idea of cross-dressing always comes across in a really kind of mean-spirited way. It's very odd that it keeps fixating on it. On top of that, you have extremely poor dialogue. You have probably the least inventive Leprechaun kills so far. Some of the kills in this are so boring and lame, the way he just kind of strangles someone off the edge of a screen or something like that, versus some of the wacky stuff that he got up to in the previous movies. Even just comparing this to the previous Leprechaun movies, I think this one is really bad. The fact that I already thought those were quite bad, this one is absolutely horrendous. This was a painful chore to get through. I was basically crying for the ending halfway through this. I was desperate for it to finish. Desperate.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree. I think that...
Oh, I'm shocked.
I think this is an interesting movie. It's trying to do something different. It's trying to set itself apart, from the 4 previous films, which I applaud it for. I think, unfortunately, not everything is a glaring success, and they do have, some problematic elements. But again, if you can get past it, I think you have a very interesting story with compelling characters that anyone who has ever had a dream that they try to follow can easily relate to and, be wary of. And it employs, multiple, cinematic and literary techniques that I feel like mesh together to, just honestly make a very compelling, piece of art that it feels like it stands out from the series, but at the same time is fresh and inventive and doing something different. And that's what the series has really been about. I mean, at this point, it starts off it's kind of like a typical horror movie, and then it doesn't try to keep doing the same thing over and over again. It wants to take you to new places. It wants to show you new things that the Leprechaun can do and put them in new and different situations. So for me, it's a success on that level.
Right, Tim, can we drop the character for a minute? I actually want to know what you think of this movie. Let's drop the character and actually get a genuine appraisal of how you feel about this.
What? I mean, I think it's a fun movie. I had a blast watching it. It made me laugh. I always love seeing the lip on film, and again, there's the problematic element which I did not enjoy, so that was a shame. But I mean, other than that, it's a good time all around.
I can't even begin to fathom what different version of this you watched that you came out with that opinion, because this it's trash. It's I mean, it feels like a cheap direct-to-video / TV. I mean, there was fades to black that felt like commercial breaks, to be honest, at various points. The quality of everything in this is just that of something that has been shat out for name value, that they can make a quick buck on, that has very little value.
So yes? You do agree that the Leprechaun series has name value?
In a direct-to-video cheap, like, knockoff kind of, we can make a quick bit of money way, yeah, sure. They also made 4 Scorpion King movies. It doesn't really mean that much, Tim. Yeah, okay. I you know, it actually feels like a step down from the previous 4, which is impressive, honestly. It's impressive how it feels even cheaper than those, so... Are we rating it? I guess we're at the rating it portion of this. What you giving Leprechaun 5 in the hood?
I mean, it's not my favorite of the series, for sure. I think there's still a lot of interesting stuff to be had and to be said about it. There are some dated problematic elements that unfortunately is going to drive down my score a bit, so I can't give it as high of a rating as I want. So I don't know if this is my lowest rating of the series, but I think I'm going to go with a 6.5.
I'm surprised. Also, when Ice-T and the other dude in the 70s like find the underground lair where the Leprechaun stuff is, before they break down the wall, there's like a half-eaten cheeseburger like sitting there. Like who did that belong to? I'm like, there's one of those questions.
A Ninja Turtle, I don't know.
Yeah, it didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. Yeah, this is like 2 out of 10.
Wow.
I think this is one of the worst things we've ever reviewed on this show. I think it's garbage. This is worse than The Boy. It's worse than so many things we've done. This was a painful experience. I think saying that it's almost as bad as Evil Bong is kind of the best comparison I can make. It has a lot of the bad humor, no atmosphere sort of like feel that does. It's not quite as bad as that, because that was like monumentally terrible, but yeah, there's no atmosphere. Everything just feels like, you know, it's bright daylight or whatever. There's no style to it. There's no feeling to it. Everything just feels like it's a shot for TV movie. Just nothing, with really generic, stereotypical characters who have nothing remotely unique or interesting to say. It feels like just a line of cliches for bad humor's sake, and quite frankly, you know, I hold whoever's responsible for this on a list that one day might be relevant. Okay?
What? What does that mean?
They're on the list. They're on the list. I don't know if it's a revenge list or if it's a list for, I don't know, like, I don't know, Satan to punish the wicked. I don't know.
Be interested to see who else is on this list.
Oh, you're curious if your name's on there. Oh, don't you worry. Don't you worry. You're the reason why we're doing these stupid Leprechaun movies, so I do blame you.
Hey, the fans love them.
I hold you perfectly accountable for this nonsense. This movie, it's just trash. So that's 2 out of 10 and an absurd 6.5, I think, from Tim there.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, yeah. I mean, it's probably J.K. Rowling's favorite Leprechaun movie.
Sure.
As a topical joke for the episode. So yeah,
because of the magic.
Yeah, that's the joke I was making. So yeah, I guess we're done. Yeah, we're done. If you made it this far to the end of the review, simply put the word or the name Mac Daddy. Put Mac Daddy in the comments to let us know you got this far. Of course, I'm going to make Tim pose for the thumbnail. I am terrified to think what this is going to be. 3, 2, 1, pose. I guess that'll do.
2 thumbs up.
Oh yeah, sure, all the way up your ass. Support us on Patreon if you wish. Patreon.com/MailFuzzTV to keep all the content coming. And same goes for liking, subscribing, all those things. Liking super important on YouTube. We don't emphasize it enough, and we really should. At the risk of being cliched YouTubers, we're like, smash that like button. I don't want to be that guy, but you know, it does help. So do that. Get us on Twitter at Screams Midnight.
Pretend it's a Leprechaun movie and like it.
Get us on Twitter at Screams Midnight, and of course, check out other content from MailFuzz TV. And of course, this episode has been recorded in advance, but this one's going out in November, so this one actually isn't quite at the Tim's on paternity leave yet. We'll still be recording episodes at this point, but yes. So there you go. That's Leprechaun in the Hood. The only solace I have is that it's another one down, and therefore there's only a few left. There's only one more with Warwick Davis, and then we're on to the one that's going to make Tim in pain, the awful reboot, which I've not seen, but I've heard nothing but bad things, and I'm sure I'll hate it too. But I'm hoping it's going to personally offend Tim. I'm hoping it's going to really upset him. That's my hope. So,
yeah, that might be. Look out for that one.
Yeah, look forward to that. That has been Leprechaun in the Hood. Thankfully, it's over. Like this was I enjoyed Rumpelstiltskin more than this. The Rump had some laughs. That was better than this shite. So thank you very much once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, guys, and we will see you next time.